It's time to talk music, audio gear, and anything else that crosses our minds. I'm Mark.
And I'm Peter.
And welcome to the Hurton Audio Podcast. So, there's a lot of new music that's come out recently, isn't there, Peter?
Yes, it was a busy week for releases, particularly in what we tend to listen to. I mean, we're not going to talk about the Taylor Swift album because we talk about Taylor Swift all the time, and there's a lot of people with a lot better takes on that than us. I think
100%.
We enjoy the songs for the songs. But on the complete other side of the sort of musical coin, you have albums from Mark Knopfler and Pearl Jam. The latter is the one that we will be talking about more today because we're very big fans of Pearl Jam and we've been listening to them for quite a long time. Well over 10 years, probably close to 15 years, we've been sort of listening and following Pearl Jam. And they've put out an absolutely cracking new album called Dark Matter, which is like, for a lot of people, it's sort of a return to form for Pearl Jam because it's not to say that like albums like Gigaton and Lightning Bolt wasn't that, but it just, I've seen people describe like Rolling Stone and stuff that they're saying that they just threw out the need to be relevant and went to make something that was timeless. That's what people are saying. A couple of reviews are saying like they're not trying to keep up with whoever they're trying to keep up with. They're just like, no, let's just go make an album. That's us. That is unapologetically what they do. And it, a lot of people say it's the best album since the 90s. I mean, I think Backspacer was a massively amazing album, just in terms of production, sonics, songwriting, and everything. So I don't think that it's necessarily the best album since the 90s, but I think that it's still a really, really good album as Dark Matter.
I think what's really nice about the full sound they've gone for is like, I suppose when you think about 10 and you think about them when they was playing 10 live and stuff on that tour as well, 10 is a very energetic album. And I think for me, like when I think about Pearl Jam, I think about songs like Why Go and all the full Porch. Everything on 10 is so in your face. And it's really weird that Pearl Jam sort of get lumped in a way with grunge, and grunge is about, not shredding and not doing this and not doing that. And then, you listen to 10 and it's full of guitar solos, full of really, I'm not going to say like overly technical, it's not like calculator type writing sort of guitar solos. It's not like Dream Theater-esque drumming. But what it is it's just it's enough of everything,
energy, as you said, energetic, and that we was saying like regarding live performances, there's a big difference between doing stuff energetically and doing stuff correctly. And sometimes you can do the tightest performance in like the world, like it could be theoretically perfect, but people may prefer the one that just has a bit more feel, a bit more atmosphere, and that can be even down to notes being bent out of tune because the strings being hit that hard and people are like digging in, and some people find that is actually where the music shines.
Yeah, and what I really like about all the songs I've heard of Dark Matter is it just has this like it has the energy of a live performance, doesn't it? Like the full album sounds as if it could have been played live to the listener.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It has that energy, because the thing is, like with a lot of studio records, is that people make them sound like studio records instead of playing what they would play live on record, Yeah,
and I don't think it really makes a lot of sense sometimes, because as you say, you will see bands and they go into the studio and they come out with a very, very clinical and clear sounding album, and as a production, yes, it's fantastic, but as a sort of reflection of what that band is capable of, sometimes it's not so much that it doesn't work, it's more just that it makes their lives difficult. It's like, I think of bands like 30 Seconds to Mars. So their new albums sonically are amazing and they've got really good songwriting on, but to actually play live as a band, as a unit, and I know that doesn't quite fit with their situation in their lineup, but if you were to play that as a rock band, it would be really, really hard because a lot of it's synths and a lot of it is using, synthetic or, really, really studio manipulated drum sounds. It's hard to go out and recreate that without backing tracks, essentially.
Yeah, and that's where this Pearl Jam album really shines, because you just feel like this is a perfect advert to see Pearl Jam live.
Yeah.
Like, the songs sound like I think of Pearl Jam live, you know. Pearl Jam sort of have two sides, don't they? They sort of have, like, the really goey, like, everybody's going for it, high-energy performances. And then they have, like, the acoustic ballad side that they do quite a lot. And, like, Eddie Vedder, he likes played, like, ukuleles and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like that balancing act with a band like Pearl Jam. But I just feel like the actual band is so good at playing like the hard rock sort of like I mean, what would you call it? Would you call it hard rock, or would you call it just like just rock, just in general?
I think it's just rock. I mean, people are calling it alternative. People will want to say it's grunge, which makes a lot of sense, because grunge is nothing but hard rock and basically Eddie Vedder's vocal style. I mean, that's the yardle, as it's known by whoever coined it. But that's what makes something technically grunge. So, in theory, it has to be grunge because he's singing it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's sort of like he out the big three grunge acts, which all had very different vocalists.
They did,
like Kurt Cobain,
Chris
Cornell, and Eddie Vedder all have very, very different vocal styles. Like, they're almost at the opposite ends of like the sort of vocal spectrum, really, in like voice types, and then like how they use that voice type.
Yeah,
but Eddie Vedder seemed to be the one that has like what people think of when they think of grunge, like that type of vocal.
Yeah, even though I would definitely say Nirvana's more popular, for some reason Pearl Jam is the thing people go to as that's the sound. Because I think Nirvana, yeah, they're grunge, but they're not the example I pick when I want to show somebody what grunge is if they don't understand what grunge is. Because Nirvana sound, you know, they sound very clear cut. I mean, maybe some of their earlier work. I mean, I'm thinking of albums like Nevermind and some of their hits as well, like either side of it. But Kurt Cobain's voice, yeah, you know, he's got. I mean, they've all got Seattle accents.
They all got like they all put a little bit of grain and stuff in there, don't they?
But ultimately, Eddie Vedder's vocal style is the one that people copied off. You know, when you think of bands like Creed, where they was influenced by these bands. You know, that's the style that you end up with, this Eddie Vedder yardle, the sort of throat sort of sound,
back of the throat sound.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it's just nice to always, like, we are big advocates of I'd rather have a new album than no album.
Oh, 100%.
And this is like a great example of this. All the Pearl Jam fans who love this album, that's why it's nice. You know, it's great. And obviously, unfortunately for people who like grunge, you know, Pearl Jam are in a unique situation where they can actually still make an album, whereas Soundgarden and Nirvana are not really in that sort of like, it sounds harsh to say, but they're not in that position to do so, you know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like how you look at bands like Queen and stuff, where they can, even if the band continues, it's still very difficult for them to actually make an album because it's not the same as when you've got like the vast majority of the lineup.
It's a different entity when a vocalist or even key members in bands are replaced. And Pearl Jam's got quite a original lineup. Obviously, the drummer is different, but all of them in Pearl Jam at the moment have been in Pearl Jam for a really long time. Like, they're not like going through members like every other year, like some of these sort of more established or veteran bands do. They've had a very, very consistent lineup over the years, and that really helps because I think, you know, people can connect with it more because they feel like, you know, it's a return to something, you know, like. If you've been a big Pearl Jam fan, you can listen and go, it's just like, for the most part, it's the same guys and they're still doing it. You know, it's sort of like, they were saying Ten's like 33 years old or something, I think.
Yeah, I suppose it will be, won't it?
And it's just simple maths. But when you see it written down, I mean, 10 was quite an old album when I first started listening to Pearl Jam, but it wasn't, you know, that old.
I saw an Instagram reel where it's, you know, like you say, it's simple maths, but, you know, it was somebody coming to the realization that 80s music in the 2000s is now how old 2000s music is now.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. No,
some
that's
people
horrible.
struggle with it, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like when you actually think about it, it's weird to think like, that the songs are that old. Obviously there'll be a lot of the songs that came out in the year 2000 will be 25 years old next year. So it's sort
All
of
of
hard
them
to imagine.
by default.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, your brain struggles with it sometimes. I think when you grew up at a certain time, you have all these benchmarks, and I think it, particularly if you grew up around the 2000s, it was very easy because you go, well, 2000, it's like a fresh start. 80s, 20 years ago, 70s, 30 years ago, everything was very, very clean cut in terms of how you could perceive time. And then obviously, as we get further into the 2000s and the decades start moving, that clean cut, sort of easy to remember decade maths is a mess. It doesn't make any sense to your little brains.
Yeah, you just, I think it's just the perception, it's what people think of, because I think some people are still in that sort of mindset where 80s music was 20 years ago, even though it's a lot longer than that now. But it just makes me laugh when you see these people do, like, say, reels or whatever, and it's that realization. But there's nothing clever about it. It's just a very funny thing of how people look at music, because I think people look at music like bands are still new bands. Like
100%.
People look at Sum 41 and go, it's a new band, because it's like we say with people complaining about the download lineups. People look at the download headliners and say, we need Metallica and Iron Maiden. It's like, well, there was headlining it in the 90s.
Yeah.
They can't headline it forever. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, and like, well, we can't have new bands headline. They're not big enough. It's like, well, they want that big in
these
in
new
the late
bands.
80s. Do you know what I mean? There was brand new bands going for 5 to 6 years. Do you know what I mean?
It would be somewhat like, it makes sense if there were new bands, but they're not. They're always like, well, these are new bands, and you look in the bands that started in like the late 90s or early 2000s, and you're like, these aren't new bands. These people are like, they're
veterans.
like veterans in the field, like they're career musicians. They're not like fresh startups, are they?
Yeah.
But they do get talked about as if the new bands. Like I always think of like, Muse, particularly, maybe less so now, like Muse and the Killers and Copeland, bands like that.
Like Biffy Clyro and stuff, when they've headlined.
Just a couple of years ago, definitely in the mid 2010s, people would talk about them as if they were brand new bands, and you're like, they're not. Like, yeah, they're recent bands, but they haven't just come out like of a van and been like, we're playing our first gigs. They've been going a long, long time.
Yeah, it's just like because there's that perception. I think the problem that's happened with music, because music for the most part has remained popular. Like there's an argument to say that old music is irrelevant, and I think in the 60s and 70s, there was that mindset, right? But now you talk to people, you talk to like a 15-year-old, you say, what's your favourite band? They'll go Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I would say,
they'll say the Beatles. The bands are still as popular now to a lot of people as they were. Not everybody, because it all depends on what you grew up listening to and what music you like. But, there is still a lot of people listening to music that is now like 50, 60 years old.
But I think about my experience with Pearl Jam, or our experience with Pearl Jam. We wasn't paying attention to grunge when we was growing up, and so like the first time I heard Pearl Jam was through Rock Band, the game, and to me, or maybe Guitar Hero as well, but the first time I really started paying attention was on Rock Band, and so it was like you're discovering this band, but I think we really got into Pearl Jam and sort of discovered their music ourselves when Backspacer came out, which was their 9th album. So, to us at that time, Pearl Jam was really, really fresh sounding and unique. But obviously, if you lived in Seattle in the 90s and you went to them gigs, you would have said, well, I already know Pearl Jam. I was there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to us, that was, a fresh new experience, and there will be people waking up, but and this isn't an original statement, but it's good to remind people who follow bands, people will wake up and it'll be the first day they ever hear a band like Pearl Jam or the Beatles or Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And some people they'll be completely new to them. And that, I think, is with music and all art is a really interesting thing, because these things are like preserved, so you can discover 10 and it's the same listening to it the first time as it will have been in the 90s, essentially.
Yeah, it's
if
like
you take
say,
away external factors.
when you're listening to an album for the first time, if you bought it on CD in the 90s compared to the experience of buying the remastered CD now, or even listening to it on Spotify or whatever, it is the same experience, basically. The music is the same, and you listening through the album is the same, and you will only have the same reaction you would have done if you heard it 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because if you've heard it for the first time, you don't know what's coming on the album,
and especially if you sort of discount external factors like trends and stuff, because some people don't listen to anything that is trendy, and some people are very, in terms of what they subject themselves to, very sort of isolated. So, there will be people who listen to like a band like Pearl Jam and they've never heard anything like it, so it's not like you can say, but they sound like this because of this band, or citing Temple of the Dog or Nirvana, whoever it is. Or even like I saw, like I believe they're really big. One of the guitarists, don't know which one it was, Mike McCready or Stone Gossard, was saying that Stevie Ray Vaughan is the reason why they wanted to play, I believe.
Which sort of checks out when you think about the way the solo.
And they're playing Strats.
Yeah,
That's
they sort of have it. I mean, they're not really playing blues, and I understand that. But when you actually listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan play guitar on songs like Crossfire and stuff, it very much has the same energy, because he was a very energetic guitar player.
Yeah,
like so energetic that when he did Austin City Limits, he thought he was rubbish, because he thought, I'm hitting duff notes and all that the first time he did it. But everybody thought, man, this is fantastic, because you don't think about that, when you're an audience member, you're just thinking he's playing guitar like I've not seen anybody play guitar before.
Yeah.
But very expressive. So Pearl Jam definitely take that live expressiveness and that sort of like say the thing with the guitar solos and the riffs and everything in Pearl Jam is just very energetic, expressive, and like very live sounding, it sounds silly to say, but a lot of guitar solos, even for a lot of rock bands, are very clinically put together,
and they can be sort of recorded and written in a way that ends up being quite sterile, because it's all well and good making a memorable performance, but sometimes memorable isn't simple. Sometimes memorable is them hitting like a cluster of like 6 notes at like 1,000,000 miles an hour in a song where everybody's just going off on one, and that can be like, oh my god, like I can't even really process this like musically, but that's the thing that can be the most exciting thing on the album.
Yeah, because that style of playing in rock, it can be very explosive to the ears. Like, and by that I mean like examples like Pilgrim by Wolfmother come to mind, where you listen to it and you just feel like everybody in the band's like just playing as fast as they can.
Yeah,
not necessarily really fast in tempo or anything, but you just feel like everybody in the band's really enjoying it and everybody's letting loose at the same time.
And it's not the same as like a technical metal band doing like a really fast strummed and double bass drum section. It's a different thing, because it's more like a rhythmic interplay where it's still maybe a mid-tempo song or a up-tempo song.
Yeah.
It's not speed metal song, but because like the space is punctuated with like just a lot of notes, but it's not like you're just hitting chromatic shredding and stuff like that. A lot of the time, like we were saying about Pearl Jam, is a lot of the solos are very like rooted in the blues, and a lot of it reminds me of Jimi Hendrix, like, because of the wah-wah as well in the Strat.
Yeah,
a lot of it sounds like Jimi Hendrix to me in Pearl Jam, and I think if you want to hear like what Jimi Hendrix could have been getting up to, I feel like Pearl Jam's a great place to listen, because that's the immersion that I get from it.
I'm just very, very happy that they've put something out. I mean, I think also with Pearl Jam, like I don't want to say that they always have bad album covers, but I think Pearl Jam have hit and miss album covers dependent on what your preferences are. Like the one with is it a dog just on the front cover?
Yeah,
one of the greatest hits, I think. Or
that's Versus. I want to say, but yeah, I can't see the albums now.
No, I can't see the albums, and I'm not very good with the first few albums.
It's the middle section.
Yeah, 10 is an album I know very well, and then Backspacer I know very well, and I know that there's songs like Big Wave in between, but I don't know a lot. I'm not like I'm not super into some of the earlier Pearl Jam.
We've listened to a lot of them, but like you say, it's definitely 10 Backspacer that we really get into.
Bugs on Vitology comes to mind as a great song, one of my favourites. Bugs. Listen to Bugs if you've not heard it, because it's a trip, and this is like the sort of thing that I think is really nice about a lot of the old rock bands. And by old rock bands, I just mean like before social media and perfection became like an overarching thing where the industry was like clamping down on quality. Because when you listen to a lot of classic rock bands,
they're doing some weird stuff.
They've got maybe for every 5 good songs, they've got 5 duds, right? And, that sounds really harsh to say, but in comparison to the quality people expect from music now, when you start listening, particularly to the late 60s and early 70s rock bands, they're just all over the place. Like, I've been listening to one of the classic rock playlists, and you just hear some of the songs, and you'd know some of the bands, and you'd be like, I ain't heard this song, but this song is not what I think of when I think of that band. Do you know what I mean? And what's really nice with everything, I want to say pre-millennium, because this is something that you hear a little bit less after the millennium in music, because I think budgets started to get tighter. They started to want quality, and they didn't want people to just make an album. I mean, you had a lot of albums where you just needed to fill the vinyl up, and it's like, right, we've got these recordings, and like you say, how Bugs made it onto Vitology, and how, to me, when I listen to Vitology, Bugs is one of the most memorable songs on that album. I can't really think of any of the other songs.
Corduroy, I remember being very good. Corduroy is one of the other ones.
Bugs stands really out because it's just so bizarre, and it is Bugs a good song? Well, it's hard to say. It depends if you're thinking about a sing-along radio song or not, but it's just something that definitely sticks with you. It's a bit like when you listen to some of the Prince albums all the way through, like Emancipation, and you hear Joint to Joint, and you're just like, how did this even get made, is what you think with some of the songs. And that's what I think is really refreshing about some of the older albums that you can find. Yeah,
it's the same as like with the Beatles. I know somebody did like a reel or a TikTok where they was going through why the Beatles music is like insane, and it's like, you get songs like Maxwell's Silver Hammer, which is just about murder, and loads of these weird songs that sound, and they all sound goofy as well. Though they're not like, it's not like Every Breath You Take, where it's like a sinister sort of like a sinister undertone to a well-written song. Some of these songs just sound goofy and like cartoon songs.
And like when you think about 10 as an album, you have just sort of like manic songs like Why Go. It just sort of goes off the rails about halfway through, and everybody's just screaming, and everybody's just going wild. It almost sounds like a thunderstorm in places. It sounds so chaotic.
It's anybody of that era, 10 was a full playable album on Rock Band if you downloaded it, and we got the full of 10. If not all of it, we got most of it. I think we got the full album there. And playing them songs on Rock Band was just a joy, and it was just always fun because, like you said, they were so chaotic. But they're always like the groovy chaotic. That's the thing. Like there's the way that the drums and the rhythm sections sort of go on them songs, all the ones off 10, is just mesmerizing in a way. And also, though, if you're playing a rhythm game like Rock Band, it's very satisfying because it's challenging, but it's not challenging in the same way like Through the Fire and Flames was on Guitar Hero. It's challenging in a more consistent, but also like a more musical way.
Yeah, and like just some of the songs on 10 are just so enjoyable. Like Porch, I feel like Porch starts and then it doesn't get back round to the second verse. Like that's how it sounds like when you listen to it. It starts immediately and then it just goes, and it just keeps going, and it's almost, you almost feel like on some of the songs they're just running off the rails and nobody can stop them. That's like the sort of vibe it gives off.
On this album, Dark Matter, React Respond, I was listening to that, and it was doing the same thing. They just start just getting more and more aggressive as the song's going on, and then they kick out like a big wah solo and everything, and it is very reminiscent of 10 in places and of what Pearl Jam do best. And I'm really, really glad that Pearl Jam felt as if they could do that, and they didn't feel the need to, I don't know, prove something else. I think a lot of artists now feel like they have to either reinvent or for some reason keep up with whatever this thing is that people are expected to do. And sometimes the best thing to do is do what you do best. But I also think musically, in trends at the moment, there isn't an overarching theme. There isn't a specific sound people can slot into. So it seems to make a lot more sense to me to just make an album that's you, or that sounds like that band doing what they do, because there isn't like a neat little packet you can slide into anymore.
But did you say that they was trying to not chase like
a sound?
A sound.
There was just.
Well, it's really funny you say that, because what I heard when I first listened to any of the songs of Dark Matter is I thought it just sounded like a very, very modern take on what they were doing. Do you know what I mean? Because like production wise, I know it's not nothing fancy, but it's not mixed and mastered in a old way. Do you know what I mean?
Andy Watt, who's done Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber albums.
Yeah.
So, but he's done a lot of rock albums.
But what I'm saying is, like, what's nice about it is it's like, yes, we're going to do stuff like we did in the past, but you know, I think it's good to do that with like some sense of modern production. Because all that is like just the fidelity. You know, when you listen to Dark Matter, I mean, and obviously recording, even like on 10, you know, they had a good drum sound. It didn't exactly sound bad because the technology had sort of caught up. And in all fairness, 10 is a better produced album than
most of the
other, well, not even Pearl Jam's albums, most of the other grunge albums. It seemed to be a very, very highly produced album, which is not what you think of when you think of grunge. But it's almost like Pearl Jam, when they got lumped in with grunge, had to rein it back.
Well,
on the following
we were
projects.
saying, if you look at it, I believe 10 came out, 92 or 90? It's not 90, is it? Well, if it's 33 years old,
I'll look.
It must be 91 maybe. So grunge really didn't fully embrace its sound of minimalism and rawness.
91, yeah.
Yeah. So it was coming out with albums like by Poison and people like that. So really, it is produced really well, because the art of underproduction, which was very, very popular in the mid and late 90s, particularly in rock, that hadn't actually kicked off yet. So you get all the sheen of the 80s production techniques sort of on this grunge album. And that's why I think 10 stands out so much.
Yeah, because the drums sound massive. They sound almost like an 80s drum kit in places on 10. And that's what's so nice about it.
Guitars and bass are full of chorus on some of the songs. You know, when you think of Jeremy, everything's got chorus on. And everything's very spacious on that album. You know, that album is a spacious sounding album. And when I think of albums like Vitology and Binaural, to me they sound very small, because they've stripped all the production out, because that was trendy. So I think, you know, that's the thing that's nice when we're listening to Dark Matter. They're not trying to strip anything back. They're just playing it in a manner that sounds the best it can.
But it's
sound.
also mixed in a manner that sounds like it sounds high fidelity, and it sounds wide on speakers, and it doesn't sound too closed in. My only problem when we think about genres that are more stripped down on the production is it tends to be like a way for them to say, well, we want this album to sound almost in mono, and we're not allowed to do anything cool with the production. We can't have things spinning around in headphones. We can't do anything.
It ends up being a manufactured authenticity, though, because anybody can strip the production down, because ultimately the production can only be built up once it's recorded. I mean, you could record a song live in a room, put no effects on it, and put it out, and that's, yeah, it's authentic, but it's not, you know, it's not the song and the performance that, you know, that wouldn't change to a degree unless you made it change by warping stuff and correcting stuff. You know, having something sound good doesn't affect the performance, it just makes it sound good.
Yeah, but yeah, on closing thoughts, just hopefully we get more I mean, I don't think we'll get more anytime soon.
Well done, Pearl Jam.
But I'm just happy that we've got this because, like you say, it's always nice when you get a new album by some of these bands. You know, nobody's making Pearl Jam make a new album but themselves.
Well, they credit Andrew Watt with basically getting them into gear, basically.
Yeah.
So his technique as a producer, whatever he did worked because it's put Pearl Jam where they need to be and where they want to be, I would have thought, sonically. And that's the best thing a producer can do. You know, a lot of time they complain about new producers coming in and producing one of their favourite artists. But whatever Andrew Watt's done, he has nailed the brief for what I would say Pearl Jam fans actually want.
Yeah. Right, on that note, thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week.